Yes, guys, welcome back to the Tottenham Lens. Today we're going to be deep diving into the transfer rumours of who might be leaving the club and who we're interested in. Now, let's kickstart everything with news that we've been waiting for. We've got the here we go from Spurs official. Luka Vuskovic has now made his move over to Brighton and Hove Albion. This is a transfer where I'm quite saddened by the fact that he's left Tottenham, but I understand the reasons behind it. You know, we got him onto our books from a young age, and all he's seen in his career is loan move after loan move after loan move after loan move. And, you know, if Tottenham wasn't so decisive in their transfer window this season with the likes of Brendan and Senesi, Jan Paul Hector, you know, maybe there would have been room for him to come into the team, you know, try and stamp his mark, etc. But I just don't think this year we can guarantee him game time. I just don't think it's going to happen. So it's probably best for all parties that, you know, Tottenham obviously get a decent fee for him as a, you know, a massive European target or European player with potential. But also we have a 20% sell-on clause with him as well. So, you know, we'll be getting our, 50 million from him roughly, you know, add-ons and then a 20% fee. And if Brighton were to sell him in the next, you know, 2 to 3 years to one of the European giants such as your Barcelona, Juventus, you know, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, etc., because they're interested in him, and they have told the player that, you know, there's interest from them. If he goes for 100 mil in the future, that could be, you know, 20 million in our bank. And that means that obviously, you know, as a total fee, we roughly got 70 million from him. So, you know, it's one of those things that had to happen, but it would have been great to see him in a Tottenham shirt other than during the pre-season game. I think he played against, was it Wickham or Reading or whoever it was. It would have been good to see him play. He put in some fantastic performances against Hamburg, but again, no, for Hamburg, apologies. But again, we just wasn't sure of how things were going to make out, you know, be for him in the Premier League, especially with its intense pace and in terms of Luka Vuskovic, you know, his physical attributes, such as, you know, his turn of pace. That's obviously something that was obviously up for massive discussion. So, you know, I wish him all the best. And, you know, we've just got to move on with what we've got. And, you know, definitely looking forward to next season moving forward. Adding on to that, Lucas Bergvall, he's seen as a replacement for Elliott Anderson after he's made his move from Nottingham Forest to Manchester City for about 116 million. So it's come out a few weeks back that Lucas Bergvall was looking to leave Tottenham. This was due to the reason of him feeling that he's not going to get adequate game time. And I can understand, you know, why he might want to leave Tottenham. You know, his reasons, it's not like his reasons are like, I want to leave the club, I hate it, you know, they promised me this, and it's not happening. You know, you could see that he just wants game time. There's no news coming out from the club that he's not in De Zerbi's plans, but he just wants to have game time. And if you think about it this way, you know, he's a young player. He's 20 now. When he first came to us, he was 18. You know, got him for 10 million. You know, we beat the likes of, I think it was Barcelona, maybe Bayern Munich to him. His first season, outstanding season, you know, and he cleaned up on a lot of the end of season awards. Second season, obviously, a lot of injuries, etc. And it just wasn't, you know, it just didn't really work out for him playing in various different positions. And there's even times where he's been sort of like playing on a wing and things like that. So it's been a mixture of positions. And I think as a centre midfielder, you know, he's seen the likes of Tonali and Fernandes coming and he's thinking, wow, okay, yes, I'll get to play, but am I going to play as many games as I was before? especially that we're not in any European competitions. Now, probably in a more normal situation, you would already have your established set midfield players, and you bring in a youngster with talent, and he would have probably had a season or two of being embedded into the first team, getting minutes, etc. Start certain games he will start, in certain cups, etc. Lucas Bergvall from the off was starting, and then to go down to less minutes, it makes things quite tricky and quite difficult. But what it comes down to is obviously the manager being able to speak to him and say to him, you are in my plans. There is a pathway for you. I want you to develop. This is how it's going to work, etc. And I think sort of going through that process, it's a bit like Dele Alli. When we got Dele Alli from Milton Keynes Dons for what 5 million or whatever it was, the plan wasn't for him to start. The plan was, we saw him as a talent. We're going to bring him into the first team and develop, and he'll probably get minutes here or there. But this kid from the off just blew up, and his talent was just not, it wasn't forgiven. He was tearing up the league and, and making some of the most sort of like Premier League players, more established Premier League players look rubbish, and making them look the fool, etc. Had lots of personality and character and drive about him. So it's a difficult situation. If Bergval came in from the off and sort of like really made a stamp on his position, a bit like Dele Alli did, then you go, well, we're bringing competition, yes, but he's a starter. But Bergval of late hasn't been that. But I feel like having players such as Tonali who can help guide him, the likes of Maddison being back can help guide him, and we can start to see him establish himself in a much better position. But if it's something that he wants, if it feels like it's a situation where he wants to go, then, I think Nottingham Forest probably would be a good move for him. Going there probably as a starter, and, Glasner probably would develop him. And especially as they see that Lucas Bergval could be that, like for like replacement. Now moving on to Nico Williams. I had to actually look at one of those broadcaster videos where all the players at the beginning of the season explain, or basically pronounce how the name should be said, and he literally said, my name is Nico Williams, not Neco Williams. So Nico Williams, apologies. Nico Williams, Welsh international, plays for Nottingham Forest. At the moment, he's in advanced stages of a new contract with Forest. There's been talks about Djed Spence's future after he's been having a great run in the World Cup at the minute. And there's been a lot of discussions about whether he's going to still be in the team and stuff, and Neco Williams could potentially come in as a replacement. From what I've heard from Ben Jacobs on the Last Word on Spurs, was that just before the World Cup really started to kick off, Djed Spence had discussions with the club, and the club said that we are not looking to bring in any replacement or any replacement which can also play, left back or right back. We're happy with the situation right now. And so far at this moment, nothing has changed with that. So it looks like Djed Spence could stay at the club. But this is the transfer market. Things could change. Players could become available, etc. In terms of Neco Williams, very good player. Again, versatile, like Djed Spence. I think they're the opposites of each other. I think you would see it as Djed Spence is probably a lot more better defensively, and Neco Williams probably has a lot more better sort of like attacking attributes. But there wouldn't be it wouldn't really make sense to sell Djed Spence to get Neco Williams in. We might as well stick with Djed Spence, unless if we were going to bring in somebody who was really, really going to put Pedro Porro under real pressure for his position. Also discussing now Archie Gray. So again, there's no sort of real discussions about Archie Gray leaving the team or leaving Tottenham Hotspurs. As we all know, Newcastle made an inquiry while we were discussing the terms for Tonali. Archie Gray is not up for sale, just like Lucas Bergvall. They both literally, if they spend one more season with us, they will then become homegrown players or known as club trained players, and that helps us massively in that department, especially when it comes to like Champions League and European competitions and stuff like that. So at the moment, from what we know, Archie Gray will not be leaving the club, and no bid has been received by anyone. At this moment, there's question marks around the future of Richarlison. It's believed that Solanke is really appreciated by De Zerbi and the type of striker that he wants. I think Richarlison has a big question mark around his future. And, watch this space. We could end up seeing Richarlison move further afield. There has been links to clubs in Saudi, Al Hilal being one of them. But obviously, as we know, Cristiano Ronaldo is the main man over there. So it's whether they want to really put out that pursuit for him. We've got Mathys Tel. It's also believed that, yes, he has a massive future ahead of him. And he's not necessarily a player that we want to get rid of. But if certain signings come in, that could see the exit door paved for Mathys Tel. Vicario, again, has been linked to Juventus and Inter Milan. Both of them have eyes on the player. Obviously, Emi Martinez is highly rated by Juventus, and that could see him make a move over to Juventus. But also, Juventus do appreciate Vicario. So within the next 6 weeks, we could see Vicario heading back to Italy, which I think is preferred move. Also, we're looking at Sarr, Pape Sarr. He's a player that came in, I think it was just after or just almost as like a crossover between when we had Ndombele and Sarr. I had big hopes and aspirations for this kid, honestly. Like, with him, it's been night and day. Because I think when he plays really well, he plays really well. And when he plays really bad, he plays really bad. There hasn't been that real in-between. And, we've seen him go on to score some great goals, be very creative, high pressing, that energy. But we've just not seen a lot of consistency. And I think where we do have a massive, we've got a lot of players in the midfield. Tonali, Fernandes, Gallagher, Maddison, Simons when he comes back, Simons when he comes back from injury, Bergval, Archie Gray. The midfield area is bloated, is massively bloated, and just don't see the game time happening for him. So it could be a chance that he ends up going. Again, from Ben Jacobs, there's interest from Brentford, some Saudi clubs, not any unspecific. Apparently, River Plate have been sort of like interested. Potential interest from Lazio. Apparently, they did reach out and inquire, but they haven't followed up with any bids or anything. Apparently, French clubs as well, which would make sense, as he did spend time in France. And this could see him, exit Tottenham. So I think, again, we need to watch this space in regards to that. There's also been talks that Manchester United held internal talks with Micky, not with Micky van der Ven, about Micky van der Ven, but they never made the calls to the player, to his agent or Tottenham Hotspur. Again, throughout the season, there's been discussions, obviously, about Micky van der Ven's future, whether he will leave Tottenham. Liverpool was one of the main clubs that, we thought he was going to potentially go to, and still could potentially happen. Especially as Van Dijk is coming towards the end of his career, and they've lost Konate. Liverpool will be looking for centre backs to bring into the team. So, I think at the moment Tottenham want to find. They would like to find. Not find. They would like to Micky van der Ven to sign a new contract. They would like Micky van der Ven to sign a new contract, but I think that's, in talks at the moment, but nothing has been signed. So, if we can get Micky van der Ven to sign a new contract, hopefully we can see him back to his best, and obviously show to him and the rest of the players that Tottenham are serious and we're looking to push on and crack on this season. We've also got Will Lankshear, Tottenham Youth Academy player. He was on loan last year with Oxford United. We saw him scoring, a decent amount of goals, a lot of goal contributions. Centre forward, and there's been a lot of approaches for him, especially in the last few weeks, especially by Wolves, Sporting, and Southampton. It's understandable that Wolves and Southampton are in for him, as Will Lankshear's had EFL experience playing for the likes of Oxford United and also West Brom. And the likes of Sports in Lisbon are also interested in, but those Tottenham have not engaged with any sort of talks. I think it's a case of De Zerbi really wants to take a look at him. We have seen in the past De Zerbi develop young players, young talent, and potentially Will Lankshear could be one of those talents that Tottenham decide to take a further look at and potentially keep in the squad. If not, it might see him go out on loan. But I think, as Preseason just started on Friday, I think it's a case of Tottenham want to take a look, or De Zerbi wants to take a real good look at him before making any real decisions on what is next. And also to add, I'm going to mention to you who was at preseason training, at the start of preseason training, so far. So, in terms of who was at preseason training so far, so the players that were who returned to Hotspur Way yesterday for the first pitch session for preseason are these players. So, Antonin Kinski, Martin Dubravka, Brandon Austin, Guglielmo Vicario, Gota Takai, Ashley Phillips, Destiny Udogi, Ben Davies, Mathys Fernandes, Archie Gray, Conor Gallagher, James Maddison, Jamie Donnelly, Dejan Kulusevski, Mohamed Kudus, Wilson Odobert, Yang Min Hyuk, Dominic Solanke, Richarlison, Mathys Tel, Dane Scarlett, Mike Moore, Mana Solomon. So, there's a fair amount of players obviously who have returned. It's great to see Mohamed Kudus obviously back. It's great to see Wilson Odobert and Dejan Kulusevski also training. From what we've heard, Dejan Kulusevski, his training is so far on track. I know there's been some hiccups throughout the year in terms of his training, but obviously there's been recent footage of him, basically doing like one-to-one sessions with a coach and doing shooting practice and things like that. So it's good to see that he's back, but with obviously his specific sort of patella injury, we have to obviously play with caution. So I do believe that it will take him a while before he's really back into anything sort of really concrete. And who knows, maybe that could be around the likes of October or November. That's, providing things don't go wrong for him in terms of his recovery. But it's great to see these players back. Obviously, Manor Solomon's back. It's likely that he will leave Tottenham. You got Kota Takai. It'd be interesting. I guess he would want to impress the likes of, Roberto De Zerbi. Same with Ashley Phillips, and even Jamie Donnelly and Dane Scarlett. I think these are players who will want to show Roberto De Zerbi what they've got, that they've got potential, and can they stay on for the season with the first team rather than being sent out on loan. So it will be interesting to see, obviously, how things start to build up. Obviously, as the weeks go by, we'll see the return of a lot more players coming back from the World Cup. So they'll sort of be on their break at the minute, and they'll be phased back in, etc. So again, guys, thank you very much for listening to the Tottenham Lens. Please make sure you like, hype, and subscribe. Please leave your comments in the comment section in regards to, obviously, the transfer rumours. And look forward to hearing from you guys. Peace.